Warm and cold greys, do you use them separately or together? So today I want to talk about using warm and cool greys mixed together. So our first candidate for the warm and cool greys is the lovely Brad. And you can see on Brad here, I've actually only used warm and cold grey, so I've only used the Polychromos range on Brad, and I've only used the greys. I haven't used any other colour in him, so it's just the warm and the cool shades of the greys within the Polychromos range. The Polychromos, I think, have the best range of greys. They have 6 cold, 6 warm, and then they have the dark sepia, and they also have the Payne's grey, which are Payne's grey is a colder grey, and the dark sepia is a very dark, warmer grey. So they have a fantastic range of greys, and that's all I've used in this portrait. And you can see where I've used the cold and the warm greys in here just by looking at the colour. So if we look at his forehead here, it looks quite yellowy. It looks sort of warmer. When we talk about warm and cold, if you think about warm as being nice and cozy by a fire and cold as being out in the snow, there's clearly an awful lot more to it than that, but that's sort of like quite an easy way to sort of recognize warm and cool colors. So this is what I've done with him. So I've used warm in here, but then I've started to mix it. As we come down his nose here, you can see I've got a mixture of the warm colors moving down into the cold, and then we've got a little bit more warm down here. When we move into his muzzle area here, I've got warm in the highlight areas, and then I've got the cooler grey in those shadowy areas there. In these dark, really dark places, like on his muzzle and in his nostrils, there's a lot of colder greys in there just because it's darker, but there's definitely some warmer elements in there too. So coming down here, there's some dark sepia in there, which is a much warmer grey. And then when we go into his back, that just sort of softens off. I've kept that as a warmer grey just because I wanted it to match the paper a little bit better, and it just sort of drifts off into the paper. So mixing your cold and your warm greys for me is something that works really beautifully. You get this sort of almost sort of silvery colour through it. You know, and just because you've got an element of lighting that shows warm or cold hues doesn't mean to say that you've just got to use that one colour. So we move on to the little bearded collie. Again, I've used more colours in here, but predominantly he's a black and white dog. And again, I've used a mixture of the warm and cool colours in here as well, the warm and cool greys, particularly in his chest area. So we've got warm coming down from underneath his neck area here, down onto the side of the shoulder. We're going from warm into cool. So it's a really lovely graduation of warm through into cool, and I think it just looks so lovely. And then in his chest area, again, we've got some of those lovely warm greys in there, mixed in with some of the cooler ones, some pinky colours in there as well. And I just think it gives a really lovely feel to the white fur. If we move on to the beautiful Daisy here, which is one of my most recent commission pieces, again, we're looking at all sorts of different combinations of cool and warm greys in here. On her face, we've got lots of cool greys. We've got the light kind of shining, particularly on the front of her face. So there's quite a lot of cool greys in there. But moving into the warmer greys as we come into and around her lovely sort of orangey face. Then when I've moved onto the neck area here, again, there's a really strong combination of the warm elements here coming through into those cooler areas here. Now for the cooler greys, I've also mixed in a little bit of ultramarine violet, which is a very sort of cool, very light purpley colour, and some blues in there as well. So I haven't just used the cold greys, but they work with the cold greys very nicely. And then we have the lovely cat. Again, this is a really good example of how I have mixed cool and warm greys together and got like really lovely softness, I think, to this piece. You can see down here the yellowy colours, they're the warm greys, and these bluey sort of almost violety colours there, the cooler greys that are coming through into here. And the same up on the top of her head. So we've got warm greys on the top. You can see there's a little bit of a yellowy tinge. And then as we come down onto the front of her face, we move into those much colder greys. So it's a much more bluey colour that's coming through there. So if you aren't mixing your cold and warm greys together already, give it a go. They make the most amazing effects. They look fantastic together, and polychromos have got such a great range.